Today we're hanging out with Dan Dowdy, and we're diving deep into dedication and determination and how it can improve your life and your business. Dan, you ready to crush it?
Let's crush it, Justin. I'm ready to go.
Running a home service business is hard. So how is it that some people make it look so easy? Well, we'll tell you. This is the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. It's always good to hear the wins that successful contractors have. But have you ever thought that the best advice would be to hear about the speed bumps they encountered, the mistakes they've made along the way? We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want you to be successful and avoid the mistakes others have made. Let's get this party started. Welcome to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Now your host, Justin Deese.
Hey, and welcome to Freedom Blueprint Podcast. And me and Dan are hanging out today. Dan, what's happening, my man?
You know, Justin, just hanging out, having a good time. Pre-game, we had a little technical difficulties, but we overcame. We made it work.
And think about this. So the point of what we're talking about today is about dedication and determination. And I will say, with the technical issues we were having, we had to be dedicated and determined.
I know. It's a good, it's all good. You know, it got us warmed up for the podcast episode, and I'm just looking forward to being here, sharing with your audience, and just hoping to add some value.
We're excited to have you. And to be honest with you, when I was thinking about this episode, and I was thinking about dedication and determination, I don't know if you know this or not, but you always pop in my head when I think about dedication and determination. And I always think about how you're willing to do the hard stuff. And I think a lot of times it's easy to talk about the hard stuff, and it's a totally different thing to be, dedicated and determined and not let things get in your way. There's a quote, and I don't remember who said it, but I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But the guy says, dedication is dedication regardless of how you feel. And I think that's true. Like, it doesn't matter how you feel. If you've dedicated to it, you got to do it. So man, let's dive in.
Yeah. So as we start this, I just want to tell everybody out there that I haven't always been dedicated and determined.
Yeah.
Wasn't naturally me early on in life. And so, we'll talk more about how I became dedicated and determined, but I just want to put that out there because I think that, being in the trades for almost 25 years now, and running my own home service businesses, it's just, there's certain points in my life where, I quickly could make myself the victim and point outwardly and blame everything else of why I wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And, it wasn't until I learned how to really hone that and focus on what I can control that I was able to start growing and in that growth, stay positive and start to kind of dip into that dedication and determination. So I'm excited to talk more about that.
So before we jump into the Dan Dowdy of today, right? Because everybody goes through different seasons of their life. There's always different seasons. Let's talk about how did you even get into the trades? What did that even look like?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So I'm a second generation plumber out here in Texas, second generation master plumber. And so like a lot of multi-generation trades families, I was kind of born into it. My parents owned a small plumbing business out here in Texas. And I remember early on when I was, probably 10 years old, in the summertime, I'd go to work with my dad, and he was roughing in some houses out at Lake Travis. And it would be 1 or 2 days a week, and I'd go to work with him, and he'd say, Dan, if you're good, I'm going to give you $5. But if you go swim in the lake, you don't get any money. And so it always was kind of hit or miss. Some days I was out jumping off of somebody's dock and swimming, and some days I was in there, handing them parts and things like that. And then we would take that $5, and this is back in the day before cell phones. We would go to the arcade, and we go play arcade games. And then I remember we'd get home, and my mom would be like, "Where were y'all at? I couldn't get a hold of y'all. I had customers calling, and My dad's like, oh man, we're in trouble. But it goes way back to those days to where, being born in the trades is amazing. I love the plumbing trade. I love being a tradesman, and I take a lot of pride in that. But I think as somebody who kind of comes up in a family business, you tend to just kind of lean into that because it's what you know, it's what you do, and as I got a little older and graduated from high school, went to college for a few years, I came back to the family business. And I don't want to say it's path of least resistance, but Justin, I think it's a little bit of path of least resistance. And anybody who's multiple generations in a family business can say, you come back, it's kind of like the easiest step forward is just to join the family business. So that's kind of my story, kind of growing up and getting into the trades.
Yeah, most kids either want to be in the trades or they want to be so far from it they can't. They're like, no, the opposite direction. So my son would never want to be, and I say never, right now at this season in his life, he would never want to be in the trades. So it just, it depends. But yes, I agree. As you come back, it's like, well, I know this. I've been doing it. It's certainly comfortable. But yeah, so you did that for how many years? You were involved in that for quite a number of years.
I was involved in that for about 20 years. And, the cool thing was I started as an apprentice, went to a technician, and then I even did customer service and dispatching work. I did management, general management, and ownership in the business. So I got to touch every piece of the business as I kind of grew up in it. And, early on in my career, I was very flaky as a leader. I mean, not only was I flaky, I was also a very selfish leader, but I want to talk more about the flaky part first. I think this is really relatable for people, especially people who have that visionary mindset. We're always looking into the future. It was easy for me to get motivated. It was easy for me to go maybe look at another company or go to this retreat or go to some kind of event conference. I would go out and get all inspired, and I'd come back to my team and I'd be like, we're going to do all these great things. I was super motivated. And I got to a point in my leadership where they were just kind of shaking their head like, oh yeah, just give Dan a few weeks. He'll forget about this one. And it really started to become my reputation early on in my career. And I found that I wasn't getting any traction in my business because I was relying solely on motivation. And so really the key thing there, Justin, is motivation's not bad, but motivation and moving forward in that motivation when there's no plan to sustain it is where people tend to fall short. And what I mean is as a business owner, I'm not going to be the one carrying the torch the entire time. I need to have somebody on staff who can actually run the play, whatever it is, whatever that play is that I want to bring into the business. And so early on in my leadership, I didn't know that. And so I would launch something, and then 2 or 3 weeks later it'd drop off. And then that becomes your reputation. Your team will stop trying new things. They'll stop getting out of their comfort zone and applying it because they know that you are the flaky leader who's going to come in there, be motivated 1 second, but not follow through with it whenever the going gets hard.
Well, I think that's such a good point because I know I went through that period of time where I finally had to go, okay, I've got to be a little bit more guarded about what I share with the team because then it's like, oh, great, another idea. Oh, great, this other thing. And just like you said, you're like, you know what, give it a couple weeks and we'll be on to something different, which here's the deal. Progress happens with change, and it happens with, when you're trying new things. But a lot of times with the team members, they kind of have their little steadfast, people don't like change most of the time. So, no, I think that's such a great point. So now, so making a little bit of a shift from being involved in the trades, tell us a little bit more about the Dan of today.
Okay. Yeah, I'll kind of take y'all through the journey there. So I was in the family plumbing business for 20 years out here in Texas. And about 2018, 19 is actually, I'll go back a little more. In 2010, I hired my first business coach. It was really revolutionary in the growth of our family business. It took it from kind of a mom and pop shop that was successful to more of a self-sustaining, self-operating home service business. And so I kind of fell in love with having having that coaching, that accountability, but also started to have that dream of wanting to be a coach. And through so many different things in my life that happened, from the death of family members to the death of friends, it really had me like analyzing my life. Like, what is, what is my purpose here? I think that's fair to ask, like, what's my God-sized dream for, what does he have in store for Dan? And at that point, I went to a John Maxwell leadership conference to go get certified in his coaching and training program. And man, I just fell in love. Like, God gave me that dream. Like, this is what I want you to do. I want you to take what you learned in your plumbing business over the last 20 years, and I want you to go out and work with family plumbing businesses and help them do the same thing. And so it was a huge life change. That was truly a walk in, I was truly walking in faith there. And with the support of my wife, which she's amazing, I'm sure we'll talk more about that here in a little while. With the support of my wife, I was able to sell my share of that business and step into coaching full time with Built for the Trades. And really, Built for the Trades is just that kind of old school model of, you're only as good as your word, and it's all about integrity and quality, and really just kind of going back to that old school of the way I grew up in the trades, of just kind of putting your best foot forward with every interaction that you have. So I started that January 2020, the best year to start a business. And I've never looked back. And so, for people out there listening, it's I don't know, I'm kind of rambling here, but having a good support system, having somebody who believes in you, is key as you navigate through life.
That is probably one of the most important things, and to me, even above everything else. You've got to have a good support team behind you to pull you up, and sometimes to push you. Sometimes
Yes.
you need that push, and that's what that support team does a lot. So, Built for the Trades. So, what are some things? How do you help business owners now navigate? And what's the mission of Built for the Trades?
Yeah, so the mission is, like, we exist to serve our customers by first and foremost listening to their vision, and then providing customized coaching, training, mastermind solutions that's really built around what they want to achieve in business and life. So we really are focused on first sitting down with the client and really looking out 3 years. What is it you want to achieve? And I think the key to a successful any business, home service today, is a good vision, mission, and core values. The vision's a destination, the mission is how you're going to get there, and the core values are the guardrails that keep you on track to achieving that. And some people listening may think that's kind of old school, like that's not really necessary anymore. But I'm here to tell you, you create those for your business, you put a nice sign on the wall, you talk about them on a daily basis, it will just transform your business. Because even talking about core values, that is how you define your company culture. It's your core values plus your willingness to hold yourself as a leader and your team accountable to them equal your company culture.
Well, and vision. I like that you said that for some people that's old school, and 100% it is one of the bases to have a successful business. And really think about it like this: what if you had like a crew, like a rowing crew, and they didn't have a vision, and they each wanted to go in a different direction, and they're sitting on this boat thing, and everybody's paddling in a different direction? You would never ever get there. And for me, I always think about that. When you talk about vision, that's it. Like, how do you know? It's like putting a puzzle together, right? You put a puzzle together, and what's on the front of the box? A picture of it. So, that is the vision of what that exercise is. And I think sometimes people get bogged down in the doing it, right? Like, oh, well, if I can turn a wrench, then I can run a business. Or if I turn a wrench and my team knows what to do, they turn a wrench and, make customers happy. But there's a much bigger part of that. So I think that's fantastic. And it's so needed, especially in the world of today where there's a lot going on. There's a lot of outside influence. There's a lot of, there's just a lot.
Yeah, there's a proverb in the Bible that talks about where there's no vision, the people perish. That's thousands of years of wisdom right there. And I was actually talking with a business owner the other day who has a very successful up-and-coming business, and I asked him where his vision and his goals were documented, and he pointed to his head. I started laughing. I was like, wow, First and foremost, you have a lot of capacity as a leader because you've built a great organization. But second, the problem with that is if it's all in your head, it's all up to you, and it's easily changeable. So it goes back to the way we started the podcast. Like if you're always changing your vision and your goals, then you start to lose that trust with your team members because you're all over the place. And I'm here to say that's so normal for a visionary. You and I are both visionaries, so we understand that. That's why it's so good to have a right-hand person, your integrator or your general manager who can help you take that vision and integrate it into your business at the right time. And that's really what I love about working with family businesses. I love working with husband-wife powerhouse teams because you just see that. Like it's the balance that you need in the business to be successful.
Yes, I can attest to that.
You can attest to that. Yes, I know you can.
So I want to dive into a little bit of this big accomplishment that you just had. But before I do, I want to tell you this. So I was listening to one of your podcasts, and I think the episode was called "The Year of Two Path," which was it resonated with me a lot because as a kid, I had to recite that Robert Frost poem, and I was like 6th grade. And I'll never forget having to recite this poem. And I thought, this is dumb. I didn't want to do it, right? I absolutely hated it. I didn't want to do it. And it's funny because now that I think back, I still remember that moment. I still remember the preparation. I still remember the terror of being in front of the room, which now I look back and I go, shoot, that was kind of like my first speaking gig, except the difference is I didn't have a choice. But anyways, I wanted to share that with you because even today I think about that poem a lot and about the two roads that diverge, right? Like two roads, which one do you travel? And for most entrepreneurs, it's typically the one that is less traveled. So if you haven't checked out Dan's podcast, it's Built for the Trades. Check it out. And that episode, I dig it. That was a pretty cool episode.
Thank you.
So let's shift. Well, I don't want to jump off the Built for the Trades yet. Is there anything else that you want to share about Built for the Trades?
Yeah, so Built for the Trades, our main goal is to help family trades businesses build self-operating businesses so they can spend more time with their family or doing the things that they love. And so the foundational tools I talked about are important. Having a good growth chart for the next 3 years, a good org chart that you can follow and that you can grow with is so key because, once again, it takes it from what's in your head or in your computer, putting it on the wall makes a big difference because your team members can get bought into it. And so everything we do starts with working with the business owners on leadership development, and then it dives into the vision, and then it trickles down through the organization. So if people out there are listening and they want more, maybe they're tired of doing everything for their business, they're surrounded with a bunch of followers that are just waiting for them to give them orders, taking no initiative, or maybe they just have high turnover in their business. They're struggling finding skilled labor. Man, we're here to help because we believe that with a good vision, mission, core values, with a good career path and growth chart for the business, when you put that out into social media and you put that out into the world and you showcase it in your office, you attract like-minded people. Like you will attract those skilled people, those high-level people that you're looking to help you grow your business. And so we really focus on that. So for anybody listening, definitely go check the podcast out, and our website's builtforthetrades.com. But let's get back to this dedication and determination, Justin.
So real quick, I want to touch on something that you said because you mentioned putting it on the wall. There's such a cool accountability with that. And also, not only do you attract the right people to be on this journey with you, but you detract the people that are not a good fit. So, yes, all of that is fantastic. So
you do.
Let's jump back into dedication and determination. Dan the man, better known as Danimal, just wrapped up 100-mile. What is it called? Like an all-terrain run? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Like tell us about it.
It's called a 100-mile ultra marathon. So it's done on hiking trails, so everything's off-road. And it's a lifelong dream. I turned 40 years old back in August, and I had my pre-midlife crisis, I call it. So I would call it a pretty good pre-midlife crisis. But yeah, my story goes way back on that, Justin. I think 2009 was the first time I ran my first marathon. And that journey started with the 5K. That journey started with just like, how could I stay in shape? How could I kind of mentally help my mental health? And we just ended up, my wife and I, Lauren is my wife, we found some friends in like a little marathon group, a training group there in Round Rock, Texas. And we started training with them, and, started with a 5K, went to a 10K, then to a half marathon and to a marathon. And then just like every time you accomplish one, you're just like, man, what can I do next? Can I do more? Can I accomplish more? And so I think that, I just wanted to make sure people know that it started very small in this journey, and it's been a long journey. 15 years, something like that, to get to this point.
Wait, you didn't wake up and just run 100 miles?
Didn't wake up just to run 100 miles. I kind of went through all different paths. And the funny thing is I call myself an all-in kind of guy. And it means that I'm either all in training for a big race, or I'm all out and I'm just like eating what I want and kind of like a slouch doing my thing. So I've spent my whole adult life searching for balance and searching for like, hey, what's just a normal, like, eating healthy here and there and getting some workouts in. But the cool thing was, like, as I look back over the last 15 years, Justin, not only, it was definitely mental health, but I think it was more for me just leveling up. Leveling up in my faith, leveling up in my leadership and my business ability, to lead my team, leveling up as a father and as a husband. And so I feel like, if I can challenge myself to do these hard things, and if I can dedicate myself to accomplishing these goals, then that's me like going to the next level. And I think it's more of a mental capacity than anything. And so, in the past years, I've done marathons. They're hard. I've done Ironmans. They're hard as well. I've done 50 milers. I ran the Grand Canyon. It was amazing. It was super hard. But I think as I get older in life, I've realized how to take that discipline towards accomplishing those races and turn it into a more long-term balance in life, to where I'm able to be there for my family first and foremost, and then my business, and then also stay healthy. So I want to make sure we can talk more about that, but that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So you want to talk more about the 100-mile race?
Well, it's not
today?
really about the 100-mile race specifically, but to me, I think about, we live in a world with social media where, when you're not having a good day, typically you're not blasting that all over social media, right? So people just get this distorted view of what success looks like, and they're like, oh, well, it's, owning this or getting to do that. And there's so many things that go into anything when it comes to success or goal hitting. And really, to me, when I think about the 100-mile being such a big success and goal, it kind of reminds me that life's a team sport. Like, it's not an individual sport. I don't know anybody who is successful alone. I'm sure there are people. I don't personally know any. And it's a really big support team that you have to have around you. So, what was the support? What did support look like for Dan? Because you don't just wake up and run 100 miles. There's this whole journey that happens. And certainly it wasn't just Dan being like, this is going to happen, get out of my way. So what is the support?
Yeah, that's a great question, Justin. So the support system, so people know a little more about me. My oldest daughter's 16, and then I have 3 other kids, 2 boys that are 9 and 7, and my youngest daughter's 5. My last time that I've ever done any kind of big race was 6 years prior. So my 5-year-old wasn't even born then. My other 2 boys were so young, they don't remember any of this. And only my oldest daughter has ever remembered seeing Dad do something that was really hard, really challenging in the physical, like, ultra marathon kind of way. And so my wife and I were on a walk one evening, and she's like, you always talk about this 100-mile thing. But I'm kind of sick of hearing you talk about it. Like, if you're going to do it, you just turned 40, like, you're only getting older. Your daughter's going to graduate in a few years, and your three youngest kids have never seen you dedicate yourself and really be determined to do something really hard. And I was like, man, like, but that's why I love her. She kind of slaps me in the face sometimes with her, some of these challenges. And it's like, Lauren, you're right, but our discussion is like, do you remember how selfish and time consuming training for something like this is? Like, you're okay with that? Like, you're going to take, be there, because when you do that, you have long training runs and you're gone a lot. And so first and foremost, getting buy-in from your support system, kind of knowing what you're getting into. And that's very relatable for business. I mean, if you are, if you're starting a business, don't start a business if your spouse is not 100% bought into it, because it's just like running a 100-mile race. Like, there's going to be so much time and so much dedication that goes into growing it. Otherwise, either your business is going to fail, your marriage is going to fail, one of the two. So it's really important. So that was the first step. And what I didn't realize in the process, Justin, was just how bought in my wife was going to get into me running this 100-mile race. She did a lot of the training with me, and we kind of signed up for smaller races on the 6 months to accomplishing this goal. And she did a lot of those with me, but we used the time together to grow in our relationship and our marriage, but also just like when I actually was doing the 100-mile race, to see how bought in and how determined she was for me to accomplish it. At a certain point, she believed in it more than me, and that's what you need. And I think that in order to have dedication and determination, you first and foremost not only need the goal, right, but you also need that support system who's going to keep you on track to your goal whenever you want to quit.
So what was the time period between when you guys were having that conversation of it's go time, let's do this, and the time that the actual race happened?
It was 6 months.
So 6 months. And during that time, again, I'm not a big runner. Like, if I crush a 5K, that's pretty impressive for me, right? It's my goal. So, I mean, how many miles do you think you ran in order to get to that 100 miles?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So, just to kind of, so when I decided I was going to do it, I didn't sign up for the race initially. I just signed up for the first race that I thought I needed to do. Like the first step, like the first part of my goal, I just went for that because the race seemed so overwhelming. If I would have just signed up for it, I didn't believe that I could do it at that point. And so I just signed up for like the first half marathon. And I wanted to do a half marathon trail run, just kind of get my feet wet into trail running again. And at that point, I could probably sustain 3 to 5 mile run. So I wasn't completely out of shape. I was doing some working out at that point, but I was 40 pounds overweight for what I needed to do to run 100 miles. And so I just took it one step at a time. So to answer your question, I probably started off running, 15, 20 miles a week. And then when I got into my peak of my training, I went through a period where I had 10 weeks where every Saturday I was running at least a marathon that Saturday. And at the peak, I did a 40-miler solo on a Saturday. So I think the most miles I ran in a week was probably 70 leading up. And that was the last big race I did was 100 kilometers, which is 62 miles. And so it was 3 weeks before my 100-miler. But I also know my body too, and I don't, some people can put 100 miles in a week, and I just can't do that without getting injured. And that's the other approach I took to this race training is with my past experience, I've always hired an outside coach to help me in this. And in this case, since I'm older and I wanted to listen to my body more, I decided to build my own coaching plan. So that way on days where I felt like if I did this program, I would get injured, I could go back and maybe do some yoga or do some cold plunge or just do some stretching or recovery just to stay healthy. And it really worked. It really worked. I didn't really, I didn't have my first injury until like the week before my 100-kilometer race. Go figure, right? And but it was really overall was a really cool experience. And so just like anything in that dedication stage, like you got to start small and you got to get that belief. And I didn't sign up for the 100-miler until like 3 months into my training. And once I did, I believed 100% that I could complete that race. So for me, I didn't actually put money down on it until I felt mentally like I had the capacity to believe in it. And so what I just told people from there on out is like, look, I signed up for it. I've already completed it mentally. Yep. And it's words are powerful. You know, I want people to hear, you know, words are really powerful. Like believing in it, speaking in it, really goes a long ways, especially when the going gets tough. You can lean back on that.
Yeah, that's so. So I think from a leadership standpoint and leadership, fatherhood, right? You're showing your kids something really cool. So sometimes sometimes I joke with my kids and I say, do as I say, not as I do. And I think it's cool because now what they're seeing is when you're saying grind it, you know, focus, grind it. Now you're saying do as I do, not just as I say. So I think that's really,
Yeah.
I think that's really fantastic. So, all right, so we're at the race.
Okay. At the
So
race.
before the race starts, how you feel?
Yeah. Yeah. So after that 100K, I had 3 weeks and I was injured. And my only goal was to get to the start line not injured. And so I'm going to the sports medicine doctor. I'm getting treated. And I'm just not running. So I just stopped running. I'm doing cold plunges and stretching and kind of riding the bike a little bit, just trying to get healthy for the race. And so we went to Huntsville State Park here in Texas is where the race was at. Took our camper out there, just my wife and I, for this race. And I remember getting there and just like seeing all the people. There's 400 runners there, so I wasn't the only one going for this. All different shapes and sizes, and it was just wild. But just to like finally get to a lifelong goal of like standing next to a banner that says like 100-mile trail run, and getting a picture in front of it was pretty surreal. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, to tell you the truth. I thought I did, but you got to remember the furthest I've ever seen was 62 miles. 38 miles difference. That's a lot of miles, right?
That's a lot of miles.
That's a lot of miles. And so what I didn't plan for was rain, and they had a lot of rain and a lot of mud and a lot of water. And I remember going to bed that night while it was pouring down rain in my camper, and I just told myself, you know, Dan, you can only worry about what you can't control. Everything else you got to let go of everything else. And it just takes that anxiety away. And for me, that was my last thought. And got up the next morning and got ready and towed the start line. And we had about a 15-minute delay due to storm and lightning. But man, little did I know, Justin, what I was getting myself into. Because I ran about 100 yards into the race with 400 other people and just instantly just sunk in about calf deep mud and water. And that became the whole journey. So we had 5 20-mile loops, and it was the same loop over and over again. And I would say probably 50 to 60% of it was underwater. Some areas was waist deep water. So you were soaked from waist down. And if you compile that with 400 footsteps times 5 going over it, so a lot of people stepping through it, it just became just a survival fest out there, just slogging through mud. So that's really how it started. And I just had to keep my mindset positive. Once again, I can't control the weather. All I can control is my attitude and my ability to embrace it. And so I would say for the first 50 miles, I had a great time. I felt like a kid running through mud and water, and it was really good. So.
And so at mile 50, which is the halfway point, was that the what have I gotten myself into?
Yes, yes, it is.
For goals, nope. Like anytime you're doing like a real goal, like a real one, there's always that point of you're second guessing yourself, right? I mean, that's running or whatever it is. So 50 miles, you get halfway through this thing and you're like thinking, Dan, what are you doing?
What did I get myself into? Yes, for sure. And 2, I had a great support system there. I had my friend Kaylin, who I've run with for a lot of years. She came out to pace me, and I had my wife Lauren was there to pace me, and just a lot of support at home. And so yeah, mile 50, the mud became not so fun anymore. when my first blister popped in my shoe. And the 62 miler I ran, I didn't have one blister. So blisters weren't really anything that I dealt with, 'cause I knew how to take care of my feet, but I didn't know how to take care of my feet when they're wet for, at that point, was 12 hours, And so once that started happening, it became very painful. And I would say at mile 60 is when I picked up my first pacer, and I sat down and I was like, yeah, every time I would come back to the start after 20 miles, we'd change shoes and socks, but I only had 2 pairs of shoes. So at that point, I was just putting back on wet shoes, and then we would put some Body Glide on my feet and put my socks back on. But really, the mental game that between miles 60 and 80, it got dark, it got cold, and I felt like everything was coming against me. My headlamps were dying, and I was losing motivation at that point because mentally the water was breaking me, because I just couldn't. My feet started to tear, and it just got so painful. And so at that point, I remember as I took 2 headlamps with me, and my second headlamp was starting to die, which I learned, have headlamps that aren't rechargeable, have headlamps that you have extra batteries for. But as I was probably 10, 15 miles into that 4 or 5 loops that I was doing, and my headlamp started to die, and I just remember that being like my soul was dying. I was like, dude, I'm just gonna die out here. It's cold and it's wet. And my pacer, Kaylin, she was just like, I was like, Kaylin, I'm sorry, like I'm done. Like, whenever I get back to the start, I'm quitting. And in the history of all the races I've done, I've never quit. And I've done a lot of crazy things. And but I was done, man. I don't know. Like, I think just physically I was tired, of course, but just mentally I was broken. Yeah. And I remember, I was just looking for a road to go lay down on. I was trying to find a road. I was just going to send a pin to my wife and say, come pick me up, I'm done. But long story short, my wife met me at mile 79 and a half, because my camper was about 50 yards off the trail. And she met us there. I was running with my other pacer, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just like, Lauren, I'm done. Like, I'm okay at that point being the guy who ran 79 and a half miles. Like, I've never quit anything like a race before, but I'm literally, you don't understand the pain that's going through me. So I remember I was like, I'm just going to walk to the camper. I'm going to shower, go to bed. And she just looked at me, and she's like, you're not going to do this to me. You're not going to do this to us. Like, you and I committed to this together. Like, I sacrificed as much as you sacrificed. And she's like, it's literally your victory lap. Like, we get back to the start, you only have one more loop, and I'm running it with you. And I was like, babe, you don't understand. I'm done. I was like, I'm so done. Watch this. And I turned my head and I threw up. I've been wanting to throw up most of the day. I was holding it in. And I remember thinking, like, oh, she's going to feel so sorry for me. She's going to let me quit. And I look up, and she's like, you feel better now? And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. You're going to make me keep going. So she was like, she negotiated with me. She's like, tell you what, you're only a half mile from the restart. Let me get you back to the start. Sit in the chair. I'll take care of your feet. And we'll figure it out from there. Which I also want to say, my wife's not a foot person. And to see her taking care of destroyed feet, man, talk about love for somebody else. Like, she won't touch my feet any of the time. And to see her do that for entire day plus, it was just amazing to see that support.
Well, and how great that she wouldn't let you give up, because let's be honest, you would be planning your next 100-miler had you not finished, and that's the truth. I mean, and I think good for Lauren for being not just a great spouse, but a great partner in knowing you well enough to know you'd have been eaten up had you not finished that. And she knows that. So that's pretty awesome.
It is pretty cool. So thinking about business, thinking about goal setting, dedication and determination, 100%, you need to have a support system by your side, whether that's your wife, your husband, or whether that's somebody else that's encouraging you and holding you accountable. It could be your coach. It could be anything. Really, I think that's key, because at a certain point, we all doubt ourselves. We all get to that hard place where we need somebody to help push us through. And even in dealing with my clients in the coaching world, it's like, you know, when they're getting distracted or they're doubting themselves, I always remind them of the goal that they set out for, this 3-year vision they want to accomplish. That's their 100-mile race. And yeah, it's so easy to quit and take the path of least resistance. Like if I had to stop at mile 79.5, went back to the shower, or went and showered and went to the camper, guess what, Justin? I was already beat up. I'd already had 3 weeks of recovery with no glory.
All you needed was that victory lap, man.
All I knew was a victory lap. So I was sitting there. It was like 3:30 in the morning at that point, and I had, you know, my main goal was just to finish, but I kind of had like a precursor goal. I wanted to do 24 hours. But that kind of went out the window after 60 miles, and I started having my feet issues. But I still wanted to finish at that point. So I'm sitting in the chair. It's 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't have to start my last loop till 8 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't want to push it that late, because you still got to finish under 32 hours. And I remember Lauren taking care of my feet, and then I pass out for a few minutes, and I come to, and she's like, "Okay, you want to go? You ready to go?" And I was like, "No, I'm done. I'm quitting." And she's like, you know, looking at me like, no. And I know she gave me a good, like, Rudy speech at that point. I can't recall what it was because I wasn't too coherent. But I remember looking beyond her, and I saw 2 headlamps going back out, and I saw the runner looking just as bad as me. And I'm like, man. And I thought, man, if they can do that, I can do it. And then I saw another one go by, and I was like, you know what? I was like, they're going back out. You know, I'm not the only one hurting this bad. And so that really got me motivated to get out of the chair and get going again. And after getting beat up like that, it literally was just like one step and then another step and then another step. And I started to believe in myself. And every time I'd find myself like almost in tears, like seriously, I was in so much pain, Lauren would just say, hey, you know, she would give me like a little chant, like, you can do this. I can do this, you know, just keep moving forward. I forget what it was. It was really good at the time, but she would take, like, the way my face would look would lead to the way my body would respond. And so she would correct me up here and get my mind right, so my body would act right. And yeah, we just got this little like hike/shuffle thing going on, and one step led to another, and then next thing you know, I'm approaching my first aid station, which is 5 miles in the last loop. And then she just said, you know what? When the sun comes up, you're gonna have a whole new lease on life. So I started this race at 6:15 on Saturday morning, and at this point, when the sun came up, it's probably 7:30 on Sunday morning, and I still got about 10-12 miles to finish the race. But it was just really cool, that point of getting to that first aid station, and then knowing that all I got is 2 more aid stations to get to before I come home. As you get that close to accomplishing a goal, you start to feel just the momentum pulling you towards the finish line, and that's definitely what I felt at that point.
That's so awesome. And so for anybody listening, if you go to Dan's Facebook page, and you may have it on Instagram too, Lauren took his phone and basically was the video person during this time period, and it was really cool. You had so much love and support and prayer behind you. I mean, you didn't even know it at the time. You probably realized it after the fact. But there were so many people just like rooting for you and, you know, had your back. And I think it's cool. So good for Lauren for being amazing and awesome, and not letting you fail. Right? Like there's something to be said about being a good spouse, but then also kicking you when you need it, right in the boot. Like, come on. And that's awesome.
Yeah, she believed in it more than me at that point. And she definitely is my rock, my support system. And whether it's business or anywhere in life, I wouldn't be successful without her. But what I hope people take away is like, man, like, you can accomplish whatever it is in your life you want to accomplish. It doesn't have to be a 100-mile race. That was just my journey. And it just once again, it takes that dedication and determination. It really what it shifts. It goes from being motivated towards something to being disciplined towards something, and that discipline is found in your daily habits, what you do on a day-to-day basis. And so, just like I did when I decided to sign up, or when I decided I wanted to do 100 miles, all I needed to do was focus on the next step, which was that first 13-mile race I signed up for. How can I get there? What kind of running, what kind of food do I need to eat? Like, what do I need to do to accomplish that? It wasn't, what do I need to do to accomplish 100 miles? Because if that was the case, I would have stopped. My motivation would have run out because I'd have realized this is way too overwhelming of a goal. So I hope people kind of take that away as like, when you have a big goal, there needs to be bite-sized goals that take that motivation from motivation to discipline. And there's momentum built on that. And then what I also like to think too, Justin, is like when you have a bad step or a bad day or you miss a workout or something, like I give myself the 24-hour rule. I got 24 hours to either celebrate it or cry about it. But after 24 hours, I get back on the horse and move forward. And I think that's a really good rule to have in business, period, because there's going to be things that happen that can take you down, but you only want it to take you down for a short period. Or there's going to be goals that you hit that I want you to celebrate for a short period, because we tend to kind of like accomplish a huge goal and then just move beyond it and start looking for the next thing.
Yeah, that's great. And so how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's the same way with goals. It's great. Dan, thank you so much for coming and hanging out and sharing with us. Connect with Dan. You can find him on social media, Built for the Trades. I'll actually have his email address in the show notes as well. But Dan, thank you so much for hanging out. And listen, if you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe to Freedom Blueprint Podcast, leave a review, and share with a fellow leader that could benefit from mastering dedication and determination. Until then, keep setting goals, keep watching your business and leadership transform. This is Justin Deese signing off from Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Stay motivated, stay dedicated, and always keep crushing it.
You've been listening to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Information is useless if not applied. So take what you've learned and go and implement it. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Freedom Blueprint for Home Services and hit the website at www.freedomblueprintpodcast.com. See you next time.